The picturesque Northern Rivers region of New South Wales, home to the relaxed communities of Lismore and Byron Bay, is usually associated with clean and green living. But in recent years there seems to have been a spike in the number of babies born with a severe condition known as gastroschisis, where the intestines and other organs grow outside a baby's body while in the womb. This rare birth defect is on the rise worldwide, but no one knows why. And the apparent jump in the numbers in the Northern Rivers has led to fears of a cluster in the area. New South Wales Health is now investigating the numbers, but not the cause. Meanwhile, the families affected are starting to ask whether there's more to it than just chance. Caro Meldrum-Hanna has this report and a warning: some viewers may find the medical images in this story distressing and confronting.
This is the small country town of Wadeville, nestled between Nimbin and the Border Ranges National Park in the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales. It's a sleepy, laid-back community, but 4 months ago something extraordinary happened here. It all started at 7 a.m. on New Year's Day, when Wadeville resident 25-year-old Angela Summers went into labour with her second child.
The first baby of the year, lucky little girl, yes, first baby born in Northern Rivers. And yeah, it was gastroschisis, and no one's ever heard of it. See around? Yeah. That's all her new skin has grown in there now.
Indy Black Summers was born with the rare birth abnormality gastroschisis, where a baby's intestines and other organs grow outside of its body through a hole in the abdominal wall. It's not hereditary and no one knows what actually causes it, but it's on the rise worldwide.
Her whole bowel was on the outside, ovaries and her stomach.
What were you thinking when you were looking at her that first time?
Oh, poor little girl, yeah. What'd have to happen to her?
The road to recovery for baby Indy wasn't easy.
She was like on her back for like over 3 weeks. And put her insides in like a silo, they call it, and tie it up, and it just slowly moves back into her body at its own time, and then they tie it down every day. So it goes in. At the end, was going a bit slower at the end, so they had to get it more aggressive and push it in.
And the trauma of those weeks still haunts Angela Summers.
Well, I felt really alone. Being at a hospital, no one knew nothing. Storms were on. My partner wasn't around. Yeah, and it was hard. Poor little girl.
But Angela Summers wasn't alone. So, Angela, this is how it all started here.
Yes.
The article. Little did she know, this small article in the local newspaper would set off a staggering chain of discovery.
Once we got home and I saw Indy and Angela in the paper, and that was a New Year's Day baby for the area, and I guess that's where it all kind of started from.
28-year-old Jackie McSkimming and her partner Matt Ostiller recently returned to their home in Barkersvale, just 5 minutes' drive from Wadeville, after months spent in hospital. 11 months ago, they gave birth to their first child, a baby boy named Olive.
Well, we found out that Olive had gastroschisis 36 hours before he was born.
It was just a chaos, mess, having so much stuff hanging outside of him. Actually, I don't know how the surgeon held him up without it all falling on the ground.
Hello.
Hey. You fun.
You too.
Look at this little one.
Yeah.
Until these mothers met for the first time today, they had no idea how similar their experiences were. Nor did they realise there were many more families from the area whose babies had been born with the same birth defect in the past 3 years.
6 other babies with gastroschisis all at once.
In the Mata Mothers?
Yeah, all in the Mata Mothers all at once at the same time. Yeah.
Because when we were there was 3.
2 others.
3, really? When I was leaving, there was another one that took her spot with gastroschisis.
When we left, another woman took our spot, and she's the lady from Ganelabar.
That woman from Ganelabar is 32-year-old Kelly Thomas.
Hello.
When she and her partner Troy Rose went to the doctor for their 12-week scan in January 2010, they were told all wasn't well for their third child. In July, Mia was born with an acute case of gastroschisis.
It was hard. It was really hard to sit there and watch Mia. Sorry. It was hard to watch her vomiting every 2 hours. Her bowel turned right around and pushed her appendix up on the other side. It was horrible just watching her do it and not be able to do anything to help her.
Kelly Thomas says she didn't fit any of the known profiles of mothers at risk of having a baby with gastroschisis, such as amphetamine and cannabis use, drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes, and being a young mum under the age of 20.
I was wondering why it was happening, because we were told there was no reasons for this, and then all of a sudden there's all these babies within a 35-kilometre, range with the same problems.
Like all of the mothers in this story, 32-year-old Elwyn Pateson also told us that none of the risk factors applied to her. But her daughter, Obelia, now 2 years old, was born with an extreme case of gastroschisis. Up to 10% of children born with the condition do not survive, and Obelia's doctor feared the worst.
He was really not optimistic about her chances of surviving the first surgery. The actual hole was only about 2 centimetres, but all of her large intestine and most of her small intestine, part of her liver and all of her reproductive organs were on the outside. It's definitely really concerning because we don't live in a highly populous area, and I don't know how many babies have been born here, but it's certainly not enough to make that seem normal.
And you were told that it was rare?
It was very rare, yep. 1 in 5 to 10,000 babies.
If the global incidence of gastroschisis is 1 in 5,000, then the figures for the Northern Rivers are alarming. In the past 3 years, there have been at least 7 babies born with the defect in northern New South Wales. Based on birth data from the ABS for that period, the incidence of gastroschisis could be as high as 1 in every 950 births. New South Wales Health, which declined to be interviewed, is currently investigating a possible gastroschisis cluster in the Northern Rivers, and an expert panel is expected to meet this month. Across the border, Brisbane paediatrician Dr Tim Donovan has been monitoring the rising rate of the birth defect in Queensland.
It's essentially risen by a factor of 500% over the last decade.
That's a huge increase.
It is a large increase, and that is why there is interest in this particular anomaly. There's always interest in every malformation in a newborn baby, but not many of them increase over a short period, and the key here is that there may be some cause for that. The problem is knowing where to look.
In New South Wales, the Northern Rivers is home to rich agricultural land and high rainfall. It's also home to a diverse farming industry. Stretched across these picturesque valleys are sugarcane, canola, banana and timber plantations, dairy farms and a booming macadamia nut industry.
When I came here myself 8 years ago, I thought I'd moved from Sydney to paradise. And it didn't take me long before I started to wonder what was going on around me. On that list, it's incredible to find that there are 7 pesticides that are actually banned in the European Union.
Jo Immig is an environmental scientist and spokesperson for the National Toxins Network. In 2010, in conjunction with the Environmental Defenders Office, the network investigated which pesticides and herbicides were being sprayed by farmers in the Northern Rivers.
What's very concerning about the Northern Rivers area is the fact that it's a very hilly and lots of valleys area with a huge rainfall, with lots and lots of watercourses going everywhere. And that's a very, very hard environment to control the movement of pesticides.
We do believe now that there are certain chemicals sprayed at the macadamia farms and the sugarcane, which is, probably a good 15 minutes away from us. But, yeah, we have heard that there are pesticides sprayed there that could cause this problem.
One of these chemicals is atrazine, a herbicide widely used in Australia to control weeds in a variety of crops. Deauthorised by the European Union in 2004, atrazine is also a groundwater contaminant that lingers for years in waterways, carried from plantations to rivers and creeks by high winds or heavy rain.
It's had a long and checkered history. It's been a pesticide that's been around for a long time, and there's had a lot of question marks about its impacts on health. In particular, its relationship in the causation of cancers, certain types of cancers, and also its endocrine or hormone disrupting capabilities, and also its linkages to birth defects such as gastroschisis.
In 2010, researchers at the University of Washington released a landmark study analysing almost 20 years of medical and agricultural data for eastern Washington. It linked a rising rate of gastroschisis to exposure to atrazine-contaminated waters, particularly for women who conceived in spring, the peak spraying time. Another 2010 study from the University of California found 1 in 10 male frogs exposed to atrazine turned into females, while 75% were rendered sterile. Studies done by the manufacturer of atrazine didn't come to the same conclusions.
If a pesticide is not safe, it shouldn't be on the market, whereas the situation we have in Australia is a regulator that allows pesticides to be on the market until they're proven conclusively to be dangerous.
That regulator is the Australian Pesticides and Veterinary Medicines Authority, or the APVMA. In 1995, the APVMA began a review of atrazine due to concerns over human and animal carcinogenity and the potential for atrazine to contaminate surface and groundwater. The review ran for 12 years. Over the past 2 decades, there have been repeated calls from communities around Australia to ban atrazine altogether. But in 2008, the APVMA determined it was safe to use if sprayed according to stricter label instructions. Joe Imig was on the APVMA's Consumer Consultative Committee for 2 terms, finishing up in 2007.
The APVMA, in our opinion, is a captured organisation funded through industry cost recovery, so that means the very companies that are wanting their chemicals registered and on the market pay the wages at the APVMA.
The regulating body in the US, the EPA, is currently conducting another review of atrazine. Joe Imig is calling on Australia's regulator to do the same. But in a written statement, the APVMA said,
"The APVMA has reviewed in detail scientific studies that suggest possible links between atrazine and gastroschisis and atrazine and hermaphrodism in frogs. While the studies are interesting, they do not satisfy internationally accepted standards of scientific rigour, relevance and reliability, which regulators rely upon to make decisions. As the studies did not provide a basis to contest or overturn existing health standards and regulatory tests defined in the APVMA's legislation, the APVMA is unable to consider a regulatory response at this time."
In the absence of direct scientific proof, some say there may be no link between gastroschisis and pesticides and herbicides used in the northern rivers.
In gastroschisis, if there was a pesticide or link, then the link would probably include some difference between rural mothers with a rural postcode and rural addresses versus metropolitan mothers. And there is no clear answer, but the risk seems to be higher in metropolitan mothers, in Europe particularly, in the United Kingdom particularly, than it is in regional mothers. That doesn't mean that pesticides can't be part of multiple causes, but it certainly makes it less likely that it's the only cause, yeah.
While these young children continue to battle with ongoing health complications, their mothers are keenly watching what New South Wales Health comes up with.
We really would like to know what has caused this, and if someone's to blame, well, we need to know. Yeah.
What do you want to happen now?
More answers on why this has happened. Yeah. So people just don't look at you.
I think that you had something to do with it.
Yep.
The distress being experienced by these families is not isolated. There may be a possible cluster involving other serious medical conditions in the region. Next week, 7:30 New South Wales will be examining whether there is a link between environmental factors and neurological disease in the Northern Rivers and beyond. Cara Meldrum-Hanna with that report.